feel I must mention by listening to this podcast, you agree not to use this podcast as medical advice to treat any medical condition in either yourself or others. It is not a substitute for professional medical advice or consultations with your healthcare professionals. We're here to share stories and give hope. Please consult your own physician for any medication questions or medical issues that you may be having. Our bodies are uniquely ours, and something that may work for one person may not necessarily work for you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Heather Davies, and this is the Meniere's Muse podcast. And today, I'm talking with someone who shares her vestibular journey that started when she was just 18 years old, Julia Savoia. This is part one of a two-part special, and we could have really talked for many hours. It was just a beautiful conversation. And at times, I think we both forgot that we were recording. Before we get started, let me share a little bit about Julia. She moved to the U.S. after graduating college in Poland with her bachelor's degree. Here, she met her husband and made the U.S. her home. She is the mother to identical twin 4-year-old girls. She was struggling with multiple chronic illnesses and noticed that nutrition was one of the most effective ways for her to manage and improve her overall health, which led to her becoming a certified holistic nutritionist through AFPA. She hopes to improve the lives of vestibular warriors through dietary change and support. Please welcome Julia. Julia, I am so happy that you're sharing space with me today. So I just want to jump right in. I'm just so excited that you're here, and I want to hear about your story. If you could tell us a little bit about yourself and your vestibular journey.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to share my story. It began in 2010. I was an 18-year-old high school student. And I first experienced kind of swaying and feeling as if the floor was moving away from me during class. And I told my teacher, she sent me home. I kind of slept for a while, woke up feeling kind of hangover. And it also came with this pressure and fullness in my ear. But I didn't think too much of it. It was right before my prom, so that's what I was focused on. But then one night I had rotational vertigo attack for the first time. And when it happens for the first time, it's so scary. You don't know what's happening. And not to sound overly dramatic, but I was like, I'm dying. It's something so wrong. I woke up my mom and I started vomiting. And she kind of convinced me. She was like, I'm sure you just ate something. And dizziness was just a part of food poisoning or some stomach bug or something. So we left it at that, but it was very scary. I feel like deep down, I knew it wasn't just food poisoning. So it happened several more times. I went to see an ENT, but they didn't diagnose me with anything. They were kind of like, maybe it's hormones, maybe it's thyroid. They tested, did my blood work, and they said everything looks fine. The loose crystals is something that comes up for a lot of people with vestibular issues. So it happened once in a while, but it didn't give me like a definite answer. And I was getting ready to go to college. So a lot was going on, and I guess, didn't want to focus on it too much, or tried to gaslight myself into thinking it wasn't that bad. And, it was just, maybe you were just tired. Maybe it was just in your head, maybe. So I went to college, and it was scary because my college was about 7-hour train ride, or the train to get to college was 7 hours. So it was far away from my hometown. It was far away from my parents. I had friends there, but it was scary having to worry what's going to happen to me if I have an attack. Are my roommates going to be there? So yes, that was the period of my life where I just pretended nothing was going on. I didn't want to be a bummer. I wanted to have fun. My friends in college were going out and traveling, and I wanted to be a part of that very badly. I remember, but episodes kept happening. The vertigo always was the same. It happened without any warning signs, and it was this rotational vertigo paired with ear fullness, ear ringing, and it lasted a couple hours always. And
How frequently were
I
they?
usually, I'm sorry.
How frequently were you having these attacks or episodes?
Once every couple weeks. But I had the ear ringing and ear fullness almost daily. So at one point, I had to just face the truth. I wasn't getting better. It wasn't going away. I couldn't wish it away as much as I wanted to. So I went to a serious clinic. They had a great ENT. They had like a whole staff of people focused on hearing problems and dizziness. And they ran all the tests. And before I went there, I Googled my symptoms and I came across Meniere's disease.
Oh, you did?
And yes, and I read all the symptoms and my heart sank. I was like, I knew it. That matched perfectly everything I was experiencing. And I just remember reading, no cure. There's no cure. And that was hard. And then when I went to the doctor and they ran all the tests, they did the hearing test. They confirmed that I lost about 40% of my hearing in the left ear at that point.
Had you noticed that?
Yes, I did. I noticed. And they did positional kind of test to check if your vertigo is positional. They did the spinning chair test. I don't know if you've had that one.
Oh, yes.
That one was fun. Not. It was hard.
Did you do the caloric testing? That was the hardest for me.
It was. Oh yes, I did. It was so unpleasant. Yeah, they basically make you have an attack, right?
Yeah.
And it's so hard. But yeah, the doctor confirmed what I had expected. He said, yes, you do have Meniere's disease. And he told me he was like, do you speak English? Because that was all back in Poland. And I said, yes. So he told me, avoid cats. And that was an acronym that stood for caffeine, alcohol, tobacco, and stress. And I was like, okay.
I haven't heard that yet. I haven't heard that before. Okay.
That was pretty good advice.
Yes.
So I was like, okay. And other than that, he put me on beta circ.
Okay.
And that.
So you were diagnosed fairly quickly.
Yes, I was 20. I was 20 when I was diagnosed.
Wow.
So that was, I guess in a way it was good that it was so early, right? Because I know for a lot of people, it takes years and years of not knowing what's going on. On the other hand, I felt so cheated out of my, college experience and early 20s and just being carefree and yeah. But I remember just coming to my dorm and bawling my eyes out for hours and thinking it's just not knowing what's going to happen to me, if I'm going to be able to have a family, if I'm going to be able to have a career. And yeah, I graduated college, got my bachelor's degree, but it was just crazy hard. It was the stress, especially when I had to take the exams, the final exams, my last year of college. I remember just walking into the building, holding onto the walls because I couldn't. The professors made it so hard to move those dates. So it was very difficult. But I got my bachelor's degree and I got into a great master's program. And I got a job at a preschool teaching English, and I love kids, so that was wonderful.
Right.
But then it was so triggering for me every time I went, and it involved a lot of movement and singing song with the kids and spinning around. And I went about maybe once or twice, and I was like, I'm sorry, I cannot do that. And then at that point, I was dizzy almost daily. And I had to drop out of college. And that was also really, really hard for me because I worked hard on it. I studied English and German. I love learning languages. That's always, I wanted to be a translator, and it was hard. I lived again far away from my home, so I had friends to depend on, but not my family, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what was the next step for me, and I decided to move. I'm gonna move back home, and I remember telling my mom, I think I'm just gonna move back to my childhood bedroom, and you guys are gonna take care of me, because I think that's just gonna be my life. I'm dizzy every day. I'm just gonna lay in bed most of the time. And now being a mother myself, I understand how rough that was for them to hear that. Yeah, and then my aunt, my mom's sister, who lives in Chicago suburbs, called me and she said, listen, I have a company and you can help, you can come here for a little bit, figure out what's next for you, and you can do paperwork from home and, at your own pace. And I said, okay, I don't have any other idea what to do with myself right now, so I'm gonna come. And then I met my husband, and it was very serious, very quick. We fell in love. I knew I wanted to stay here and be with him. And I told him about my diagnosis, and he was very supportive.
That's
He's a
great.
very, yes, I know it can take a toll on relationships having Meniere's. So
Especially a new one.
mhm. Yeah, it's stressful. I didn't know how much to share, how fast. I didn't want to lie, obviously, and go into it not telling him the truth either.
Right.
So he knew everything, and he was very, what do we do next? What are the next steps? Let's research. Let's find the doctors we need, and they had to do the same tests they did again, from the ones that did in Poland, to confirm Meniere's.
It
And I
seems
was like,
like each doctor you go to, they want to run their own tests with their own people
that's true.
because I had them all done 3 times.
Oh my
I
goodness.
I
Really?
know. And coming off the medication 3 days prior to all the testing is a nightmare. But you do it because okay, this is what I need to do, to
Exactly.
to move forward. So, yeah. So
Mhm.
they did all the testing again.
True. They did all the testing again. That left me dizzy for weeks. But they did confirm, yes, it is Meniere's disease, and they sent me to a specialist in Chicago. There's a clinic. I forget what they're called, dizziness and balance or something like that. And but the doctor there felt that since my dizziness was at that point maybe twice a month, I had the vertigo attacks, and then the rest of the time I had some tinnitus and some kind of balance issues, kind of feeling like I'm on a boat. But he felt it was too aggressive to do the surgery or the steroid injections, because he said that's gonna make my hearing worse.
Right.
And I was young. I was kind of worried that would happen. So we just kind of watched. I had meclizine, but other than that, I didn't do much else. I was just trying to, again, I guess I went back to pretending nothing was going on. And until I was diagnosed with PCOS later, polycystic ovarian syndrome. So that was unrelated to Meniere's. But my doctor suggested I go in birth control, and I didn't know too much about how that's not going to really regulate my hormones. That's just going to mask the symptoms I'm having. But I didn't know better. I said, okay. So when I started taking birth control, my vertigo got worse, much worse. And I went back to the doctor and I told her that I'm not feeling well. We need to change it. So she put me on a different birth control. And that's when all hell broke loose.
In this next clip, Julia shares a very personal story about her first drop attack and injury. This may be triggering for some individuals. She does share details of the injury and the events surrounding it. If this may trigger you, please forward to the next blue box in the video. Thanks for being here.
I had my first drop attack And that's when I thought rotational vertigo was terrifying. That was a whole new level of scary. I
Did you
remember just sitting.
share that on
Yeah,
Instagram, the photo? Yeah, wow.
I
Yeah.
did. It was just beyond awful. I was sitting at my desk and I was working on my laptop, and I remember feeling as if I was in the middle of a hurricane or something. Like everything had moved, everything almost like flipped on me. And I didn't know where my head was in space. I didn't know if I was sitting or standing. Um, so my first thought was like, you need to get to bed, because that's always what helps me with rotational vertigo or my Meniere's attacks, just laying down, laying still and waiting it out and trying to rest. But I stood up and I remember just feeling something hard on my face, and that's all I remember. And I thought for a split second we had like a column in our apartment. I thought that I just bumped into that. I woke up on the floor in like a puddle of blood, like, and I mean a puddle. And it was so awful. I felt something on my eye, and I didn't
Mhm.
realize what that was, but that was like a flab of skin from my forehead.
So
And
you were sutured in the picture that you showed.
yeah, I had 14 stitches here. I almost cut like a flipped V on my forehead. And if you watch like a boxing match ever, you know that like when they specifically hit this area because it bleeds a lot to like blind the opponent. And I was like, I thought of that in that moment. I was like, wow, they're not joking. This is bleeding.
No,
So I again, sorry, it's gonna be maybe a little too graphic for some people, but I went to the. Don't remember feeling any pain. I just adrenaline pumping, and I went to the bathroom and I saw just kind of something white on my forehead, and I realized that was my skull. And I was just in complete shock. I tried to call an ambulance. As I was falling, my phone fell under the carpet to make matters worse. So I'm like all covered in blood in the street in Chicago, trying to stop somebody to call an ambulance. It was just frantic. I ended up getting some help for myself. An ambulance came, and I ended up breaking my nose and needing 14 stitches on my forehead. And they thankfully called a plastic surgeon from another hospital who came, and he did a pretty nice job that it didn't leave too much of a scar. But I think the physical scars were nothing compared to a mental scar from that, because I couldn't gaslight myself any longer. I couldn't pretend that it was all in my head, because there was a big scar on my forehead to prove that it is bad and it is real. And it served as a constant reminder that it can happen again. And at that point, my anxiety just got so bad, and I stopped leaving the house by myself. I waited for my husband, or I would force myself to go to like a coffee shop around the corner, but I would literally go and be drenched in sweat, heart pounding, just just terrified and thinking, oh my god, okay, this is concrete. If I have an attack now, I'm going to fall on concrete. Better walk on the grass, better walk by the building. And yeah, it was probably my lowest point. And I felt like things were happening to me. I didn't understand why. Couldn't do anything to control them. And um, and again, I thought a lot about not being able to have kids. That attack scared me so much that I thought, how can I take care of a kid now? I can take care of myself. What if just horrifying pictures of like holding a little baby and having a drop attack? What if I drop them? What if something awful happens? And that's something I thought about a lot too. But and at that point, when I had my drop attacks, I lost my job because I couldn't show up. I had to take days and days off. And anybody who lives in the US knows we only get probably like 10 days on average, or whatever, and that's not nearly enough if you're having frequent vertigo attacks. And it feels awful because we live in a society that praises productivity so much. And when you lose your job, it's suddenly, who am I? Like it feels like I'm not contributing anything. I'm a burden, and I'm just sitting at home, and I'm useless. And the worst for me was at that point I was like, what, 25, 26, going to parties was the worst. Even when I felt okay, I would go and I dreaded the question when there were new people. What do you do for a living? What do you do? And it was so hard to explain that. Even though I look fine right now, I'm, dressed up and I have my makeup on and I'm smiling and I'm giggling at what you're saying. I'm not okay. And it can happen anytime and I have no control over it. And so I felt really, really down for a long time. And after that, things kind of started slowly shifting. And I really think that losing my job then was a blessing in disguise, because that gave me a lot of time. I started doing translation from home, just a little bit here and there, but that kind of got my confidence back a little bit. I was like, okay, I'm not a lost cause. I'm doing something. And me and my husband started taking a lot of walks. And that was really good for me, just moving more and just calming down. And the more we left the house and nothing happened, or I didn't have a vertigo attack or a drop attack, I felt slowly that maybe I can not be back to normal, but at least it's not going to happen so much that I'm going to be bedridden or whatever. I'm going to be able to have a career.
Right.
So I also think it's also, of course, going to be different for everybody, but they do contribute those drop attacks to hormonal birth control, because I had them. And I know we know, right? There's a connection between estrogen and worsening of Meniere symptoms. So it does make sense. And obviously, some people are on it and they do great. I'm not trying to discourage anybody, but for me, changing the birth control then, and I didn't have a drop attack since.
Wow, that's huge.
That was a big, yes. That was connection that was back then, but I stopped taking the birth control and yes, that improved. No, never had a drop attack after. And as I was feeling better. I was feeling more confident. We started talking about possibly having kids, but I knew I'm gonna have to get myself to my best health. I'm gonna have to figure out a way to deal with my vertigo, or find a way to just be stronger and healthier. And that's when for the first time I started consistently following, not like a diet, but just eating healthier, I guess, in general, eating more whole foods, and cooking more at home versus eating out. I cut out alcohol, and that was very big. I noticed a very big improvement.
Right.
So I started doing that, and I felt much, much better. And then I got pregnant, and I got pregnant, have twins on any side of the family. So that was a big surprise.
Wow.
And yeah, my pregnancy was great. So if there are pregnant listeners with Meniere's disease or planning to be pregnant anytime soon, that's a very positive thing, hopefully for you, that I didn't have a single attack. I felt great. I continued eating very healthy. I worked out regularly at home, and yeah, my pregnancy was really good. I had like maybe 2 or 3 times this kind of mini vertigo. It almost felt like an attack was starting, and 5 to 10 seconds later, it was gone. That
Wow.
was it. That was all of it.
Would you say the pregnancy is when things started to shift?
Like, I think that things started to shift before my pregnancy, when I consistently started eating healthy. And I think it was a mix of a lot of different things. I think it was a mix of not drinking alcohol for sure, eating healthier, and just the stress reduction. I didn't have to get to job or call and disappoint people and feel guilty about it. And I delivered my girl 7 weeks prematurely. That happens a lot with twins, but they were fine. I was fine. But the sleep deprivation, oh my God. Everybody who's a parent knows those first couple of weeks. It's just
couple of weeks, couple of months.
That's true. A couple, yeah, maybe years, not even. Yeah. My girls are 4. I'm still, yeah. No, but seriously, those couple, yes, first couple months. sleep deprivation and just absolute mayhem, and having many years on top of that. It's
Right.
just a whole new level of exhaustion. But my mom was helping me a lot, so I got through it. I lived. I'm here to tell the tale. So I guess the sleep deprivation, the stress, the hormonal shift kind of triggered me a little bit, but it was nothing. I don't have anymore. Ever since before my pregnancy, I stopped having those attacks that lasted a couple of hours. Now I only feel random little tinnitus or ear fullness, or I feel like sometimes I feel like I'm on a boat, but I almost always can trace it back to a specific trigger or something that I ate, or weather change, or something that happens, and that also puts me at ease, because in a weird way, because I know what happens, and I guess I don't get as anxious about it.
Yeah, chasing it back to something nutritional puts the ball back in your hands that I could have controlled that, you know, right? It's that
Exactly.
choice. Yes. So I have a question. I'm curious because you are a certified holistic nutritionist. So did you
Yes.
do this because of your Meniere's to learn about that and to share with others? Is that, or were you a certified holistic nutritionist prior to this?
When after I had my girls, I started really asking myself, who, what do I want to do? Who do I want to be? I don't know. Having kids like did that to me.
Right.
Before I was just fine doing random little translation jobs here and there, and after I really wanted passion, a career that I really loved, and I always loved cooking. I love cooking. I love eating. I love going out to restaurants. And I tried having like a cooking blog, but that wasn't it. And I thought about how much. Oh, also after my pregnancy, sorry, one important detail I forgot, that I started having symptoms of endometriosis and very painful periods, and that was on top of everything else. So the doctor suggested laparoscopic surgery to check what was going on, really, because that's the only way to really diagnose it. But my girls were only a year old at that point, and we didn't have much help. It was just me and my husband, and he has to work, and I was just worried about the whole recovery from that. So I was like, maybe if I don't get better, we're gonna do that, but I'm gonna try to make myself feel as, because I knew I did that already with my years,
Right.
kind of in a way. So I did a ton of internet research. It was a little clumsy. I wasn't sure what I was doing, but I found some things, and again I started feeling better, and I was like, if I can do that for myself, why can I do that for others? And then I had that light bulb moment. I love food and cooking and learning about nutrition, and I also do have that experience of helping myself with, overcome um, a lot of the symptoms I'm experiencing. So I decided to do that. So my girls were about a year and a half when I started the program. It was 100% remote. So that was a huge thing for me. I did it when they were napping, and I did it at night when they were sleeping. It was very difficult too, because I wanted to rest when it was finally quiet in the house.
Right.
But I'm glad I did it. I did it. I got my certification. And again, it's just kind of trying out what works and what doesn't. At first I figured, okay, the endometriosis, maybe I'm going to focus on that, because I wanted to just have a niche and focus on one type of um, whatever audience or clients.
Sure.
Uh, and I started doing that, but I realized soon that there's a ton of information about endometriosis and nutrition. There is, if you see that on Instagram, there, I don't know, maybe 30 accounts that are just dietitians who specialize in endometriosis, because
Wow.
endometriosis is a very common
Right.
disorder. 1 in 10 women suffer. So I was like, maybe that's not it. And I thought, Meniere's disease. So that's how I started my account on Instagram, called Managing Meniere's. And I like the word managing, because I don't want to. give anybody a false impression that I'm cured or I'm in remission or whatever. I like the word managing, because
Right.
I think you can manage it pretty well once you know your triggers and you know what helps you and what hurts you.
I wanted to ask, I know you did this on your own without following anything particular, but there's so much information like the Heal Your Headache diet and things like that. Did you
Mm.
do a type of elimination diet?
Yes, I did. After my course, or even during, I think, after I started learning, yeah, more about nutrition, I came across like I learned how to do an elimination diet properly and things to eliminate, and that's how I found out I was sensitive to dairy, or my vertigo was always worse. And that's something I didn't really think about before. I guess now that I think about it, I do always get a little bit of an upset stomach after ice cream. And I don't know, it wasn't very obvious for me.
Right.
But I'm a big fan of journaling. I created this journal. I think I'm going to eventually share it with all Meniere sufferers or on my profile. Basically, I created this journal or this symptom tracker where I track all my triggers and all my symptoms.
Okay.
And I love doing that, because then it becomes so clear. Sometimes, because there are so many different things that can influence how you feel. Yes, I'm feeling a little dizzy, but is it because there was a weather change? Is it because I had some beer last night? Is it because I had just had dairy? So journaling plus elimination diet, that was a game changer for me. I started really noticing clear patterns of also, and I eliminated dairy for a while and started feeling much better. I went further, actually. I went vegan or whole food plant-based for a while, and I felt amazing, and I was like, that's it, that's the answer to my question. But then after a while, I was supplementing with B12, which is a common deficiency with vegans, but I felt like my body was craving meat. I was after almost a year, my body I was thinking about salmon. I just wanted fish and meat. And I thought, I learned to listen to my body more.
Mhm.
So I'm just going to go with it. And I noticed I kept feeling great, or I felt even better than when I wasn't eating meat. So it wasn't necessarily the absence of meat for me that did it, just probably more whole foods. But then when I tried reintroducing dairy, I did notice an increase in like the ear fullness and ear ringing.
Mhm.
So I decided to cut that out completely. And again, like for everybody, right? I mean, I know you
Everything's
talked about
different.
that with other, right? It's
Yes.
all different, so it's not very helpful. But just following an elimination diet or journaling your symptoms just to find out what's really hurting you is
Absolutely.
huge.
I think it's huge. I know that there's some question about the validity of triggers for migraine and Meniere's disease, but for me personally, I know that if I just continued eating the way I was eating prior to my vestibular symptoms, I would be so sick today. And it was hard at first to eliminate all those things. And I know the Heal Your Headaches suggest to eliminate them for 6 months, and I only did it for 3, but I still did it. And even things that I wasn't able to eat or drink back then, like red wine, I was not able to have that at all when I was at the onset of my symptoms at all. It was just awful. But now I've tasted a lot of red wine and figured out which
Mhm.
ones I can have. And coffee. I wasn't able to have any of that then, but now I can treat myself. So, and your body changes. So it's just, trial and error, and you have to just try it out. But I really believe that there are a lot of nutritional triggers and they change.
Absolutely, 100%. I agree with you. And yes, I'm about 13 years into my Meniere's journey, and I can't say, I have it all figured out. And it, like you said, it changes. Like alcohol was such a huge trigger for me. I couldn't even have a little bit without getting dizzy. Now I can enjoy a beer here and there and be fine, or two. I mean, not that it's good for you, but at
Right.
the same time, it's hard to be. constantly deprived and feel like you can't, eat what you want. I think that was my problem with the low sodium diet too, which I think is very helpful, but just the focusing on what you cannot have versus on what you should be having.
Right.
I think a lot of people do that, like, but it's the same with dairy or gluten. People will say, well, just randomly think, okay, I read that gluten's bad, so gluten's out, and they'll eat, gluten-free cookies and
Right.
think, okay, this is so healthy, while in reality it has so much sugar and fat that just, it's awful for you.
Yes, we're
So,
going vegan, and people just jump on the processed vegan wagon, and you're like,
absolutely.
no, 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 no. Whole food, plant-based. Don't go
Ye-
all vegan and go get all the, all the processed vegan food. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
for sure. Beer and McDonald's fries are vegan, so so there
Right.
you go.
That's true.
But that's very true. That's just continuously uh listening to the cues your body's sending you.
Yeah.
And I think that was a big thing for me too, just changing my mindset and learning to listen to my body better. I think in the past, I was just always upset with my body when I was young. I felt I was disappointed. Like everybody was healthy, all of my friends in college, nobody was sick, not one person. Nobody had a chronic illness, let alone many years. And I remember sharing with a friend what I'm going through. And she said, just go to the doctor. And it makes me laugh kind of when I think about it now, because how cute is it? Like you think that, like, just, there's blissful ignorance that if you have an issue, you're going to go to the doctor and they're going to give you antibiotics and you're going to take it and that's over. So I felt that, always angry and always upset that everybody was okay but me. And now I think over the years, I learned to really love my body. And I think I listen to, when something's going on, I learned to listen to what my body's trying to tell me, as if I was listening to my child. And that may sound silly, but I
No.
literally think to myself, what is it that you need? And I listen to those cues lovingly and non-judgmentally, and I try to do my best. And I'm not trying to oversimplify it. Obviously,
No,
you
no,
can't
no. It
always
takes lots of
heal
practice.
yourself.
It
Yeah.
takes
And
lots of practice and self-love. And I was just speaking with another warrior, and a lot of internal mirror work to get to that
mhm,
place.
mhm,
An honest look at everything.
mhm.
Yeah, it's not that easy, but it's worth it.
Absolutely. Yes, I worked with a therapist for a little bit to work on my anxiety, because that's something I've been struggling with, even though my symptoms got better. So you would think, or I thought, why am I still so stressed out? Why am I always anxious to leave the house? And we started working through those drop attacks, and I don't think I realized how traumatic they were for me. I think I am a little bit of a no, I am a people pleaser. I never want to be a burden, and I want to smile. Even after that awful drop attack I talked about, it was a couple of days before my birthday. We still had the birthday party. I still put on a dress. I still smiled. I hugged my friends. We have
Oh,
pictures. And now that I think about it, I want to go back and hug that Julia and be like, it's okay. You can cancel that. Just go to bed. You don't need
yeah.
to prove anything to anybody. But it did take, like you said, it takes a lot of work. And I remember the simple exercise my therapist gave me. She said, put your hand on your chest and look in the mirror and say, how are you feeling, Julia? And that just that again seems very simple to do, but once you really ask yourself and you're honest with yourself,
Yes. How are
yeah,
you really feeling?
exactly. Without the fake smile and answering you're okay always. Yeah.
I'm so happy you said that, because I know that a lot of us we'll just say we're okay. And because it's easier than explaining again and again how we're feeling. But,
Mhm.
I think it goes back to that people pleasing thing, that you don't want to make them uncomfortable,
Yes.
and you kind of make yourself smaller, that you're okay, and you don't need anything. And
Mhm.
it's yeah, it's tough. Do you find that you are better at that today? I mean,
Yes, I think so. I'm still definitely working on it. What I'm struggling a lot with these days is guilt. And I read that somewhere, I don't remember where, that if people pleasing drives the car, guilt rides shotgun, right? And it's those two always come together. So I try to set boundaries and be honest and stand up for myself. And if I don't know, if there's a party but I'm not feeling up for it, even though people might be disappointed. I am trying to be honest about it. But the guilt, especially mom guilt, is something that's talked about a lot these days. And chronically ill mom guilt is is again another issue. And small things, and I try to be rational about it, and I try to talk to myself as I would to a friend. For example, my girls really want to go ice skating. That's their dream. And that just scares me so much because being on ice with bad balance just seems like such a bad idea. And I'm so feeling so guilty that I can't do that. And we're passing by the ice skating ring, and I'm like, man, I'm such a bad mom. Look at all those kids ice skating. But then I think about, what would I say to a friend who said that? I would say, no, you do a lot of other things with them. They don't have to do every single activity to have a happy childhood. But definitely the guilt, and even feeling guilty over things I have no control over, like when I have an attack and yeah, I need help with the kids, or yeah, I always feel like even though I can't control it, it's I'm putting people out and I'm making people uncomfortable, and so it's something I'm definitely trying to be more mindful of.
so yeah, that mom guilt. You know, in my former life, before my vestibular symptoms, I was a people pleaser too. And I know that one of the hardest things for me to do is to say no. And I know that these symptoms, I had no choice but to say that. And the more I said it, the easier it got. Yes, I saw my invitations to
Mm-hmm.
parties taper off. And I've
Mm-hmm.
said this before, that I have asked people, keep inviting me,
Yeah.
but and I might surprise people and show up, but that guilt is huge, and it's a constant. It's something constantly that we're working on, especially as you'll find as your daughters get older. My daughter, when I started, she was 3 and she's 9 now. And she still remembers, like she'll still bring me my
Mm-hmm.
earplugs if she's going to be rambunctious or something, or I hate that she has to see that, but it is part of life.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
I agree. I feel that way too sometimes, that my girls are 4. So they're loud. They like to play with instruments and run. And sometimes I feel bad having to tell them, it's really triggering me. You have to be quiet. But
Yeah.
yeah, we're just doing our best. But at the same time, I'm hoping there's a silver lining in there somewhere. The other day, one of my girls was loud, and her sister was like, "Hey, you have to be quiet, mom. Mama said that her ear hurts when you do that." And I was like,
They're
"Okay, so
they're
maybe
they're learning empathy early. I mean,
right."
yeah, that's tough.
Hmm.
Tough. Okay. Thank you so much, Julia. I can't wait for part 2. Wow, this conversation, I'm not really even sure what to say. We covered so much. I'm so grateful to be able to share this with you, and that there are so many vestibular warriors willing to let you inside their world, so you don't feel like you're on this roller coaster ride all alone. You can find this podcast on most major platforms, and soon on the Meniere's Muse YouTube channel. You can find the links below to reach out to Julia or myself. As someone that has been living with these vestibular disorders for 6 years and continues to have symptoms daily, sharing these stories is so important to me, because you are important to me. My wish is that you continue to find hope and inspiration through connection with these vestibular stories. For more information on vestibular disorders, please visit the VITA website at www.vestibular.org. See you next week, warriors.